Hi everyone, it's Ren here. Welcome to my room. I hope you're well today. Today we're going to be talking about some typical INFJ worries. The worries, the concerns that INFJs carry with them when they're operating about the world in various situations. Just to remind you, first of all, that I have written a book on the INFJ, and if you haven't gotten it yet, I think you should, because it is the most in-depth investigation of the type ever done. It's gotten really good reviews so far. All the links are available down below in the description box. Ebook, paperback format, the Ecstatic Soul, less than $10, all the Amazon, all the countries included. Okay, so what are some typical worries that INFJs have? What's interesting when it comes to this topic is that we have to sort of separate off two types of worries. You have the worries that INFJs can have accidentally, and then you have the worries that you could say INFJs have more essentially. An accidental worry is a worry that a person of the INFJ persuasion can have, which might be had by a person of any other persuasion. So, for example, worry about the health of their close ones, or worry about getting on with their friends, or worry about their job and keeping their job, all that sort of maybe more down-to-earth stuff. That can certainly be a worry that an INFJ person has at any point, just like it could be a worry for other types. Here we're interested in essentially INFJ worries. Doesn't mean that they cannot be had by other types, but at least when it comes to an INFJ individual, they're very likely to be there, indeed as part of their essence, as part of their soul, if you allow me that kind of language. So the first worry that would be typical of an INFJ is what other people think of them. And that's not meant to suggest that they are eager to be popular. So they would not fit the Enneagram type 3 kind of stereotype. But maybe more likely something closer to the Enneagram type 6 stereotypes. They are INFJs, because of their auxiliary FE function, are highly conscious, harmony-oriented individuals who are nevertheless always succumbing to the dominance of introverted intuition, which is not by itself a very socially constructive function. And you always have to keep that in mind. SIFE, for example, as in the case of the ISFJ, is much more socially constructive, because although FE in this case is also auxiliary, at least what you get is a sense of what is conventional. SI does this, what is by the book, what is rule-oriented. So a dominant SI user can at least have a sense of what the community expects in the first place. So FE can adapt to that. INFJs don't have that, because NI by definition is a lot more anarchic, a lot more peculiar and individualistic than SI is. So the FE of the INFJ is often a little bit more insecure in that sense. They want to seek harmony and they want to be accepted within a group, but they're also not completely sure whether they succeed, because there's a strangeness and a quirkiness to NI that is not as present in SI. So that's what I mean by they care and think about what others think of them. They worry about it because they're always wondering, am I being too strange? Am I being too weird? Or is that okay? Another concern and worry they have is how they can be useful with what's essentially most of the time a practical skill set that is not very expansive. That comes from the fact, again, they're dominant end users. They're not sensory in a very great sense. I mean, they do have extroverted sensing as an inferior function. So in a sense, extroverted sensing is something they have to work on. But it's not necessarily something that they can easily deploy to put them at the use of a community, of a group of people. It's something that they have to work on by themselves a lot of the time. And at the same time, because of this auxiliary FE function that they have this concern to be a part of a community for which they can be of use, because being useful, being helpful, being others oriented in whatever way they can is something that can ensure that they will be harmoniously included within the group. Their inclusion will make sense, will be justified in some sense. But again, the skill set is limited, because they're not let's say ISTJs, you'd have logistical ease a lot of the time with people, which can be extremely helpful when other people need that kind of stuff. Or ISTPs, you can maybe fix things, repair things, understand how a particular mechanism is constructed. There's a lot of different types that can bring lots of things, but with the INFJ, it's not always clear. And so they will spend a lot of time pondering how they can reconcile their abstract interests with the usefulness they can bring to a community, which is most of the time has to be concretized in some way. So for example, an INFJ will think, well, I'm very interested in psychology. I read a lot of books on psychology. That's abstract stuff, but maybe I can use the insights that I learned to translate them into concrete advice. And then in this way, I can help people. INFJs will rarely be satisfied with doing just the abstract part, but they will start from the abstract part. Now, a third worry is that INFJs wonder whether people really understand them. And this is tied to dominant NI to some extent. There's also the tertiary TI that comes into play here. And it's kind of at loggerheads with this desire to be included by a community, which has more to do with FE. Because NI is highly peculiar, idiosyncratic, individualistic. TI is constantly trying to figure out more and more of what this unique NI is trying to say. But that doesn't really translate well with the desire for integration. So it often results in the fact that INFJs will sense that they are more or less happily included in a group, more or less happily belonging somewhere social, at the cost, to some extent, of sacrificing this uniqueness. And they are always hoping that people can understand them as well as possible, whilst at the same time doubting it, because this is built into them by NI, introverted intuition. And at the same time, a fourth worry, which is related to the one that I just discussed, so the INFJs will, although they will rarely admit it, and this might be more true of type 4 INFJs, but type 4 INFJs are quite common, they will have some sort of subconscious worry that people will completely understand them, because as much as they would like to be understood, because that's in the nature of belonging, in the nature of being valued for what you really are, and not just what you're projecting, either as use or as support of any kind. At the same time, INFJs are still dominant NI users, meaning that this individuality, this unique quirkiness of intuition is also what defines them in the first place. It's their worldview, it's the lenses through which they look at the world. Without this sense of identity, they'd have problems with identitylessness, which is indeed a problem, and INFJs can find all sorts of healthy and unhealthy ways of dealing with these issues. But essentially, the idea of being completely understood from start to finish is a bit concerning, because NI is an intuitive function, therefore a dynamic function. It doesn't really has an end in point. It's not something that can just be put, in a box, or something that can be, whose perimeter can be easily circumscribed, and then the conclusion follows. I know what this person is, I know what they're on about. INFJs are fluid people in every sense of the word, and that also means that whenever someone would claim that they really completely understands them, it makes them feel a bit uncomfortable, a bit ill at ease, because they don't really understand themselves. But not just that, they feel like not being able to completely understand themselves is part of their essence. And finally, I want to say that their fifth worry is to always try to figure out what their vocation is and how to accomplish it, how to give a body to that vocation. They have this sense of vocation because NIFE is all about coming up with ideas that can be of significance to a social group. The ideas are on the side of intuition. They are figuring out something that's sticks out in a pattern they recognize about the present, extending into the future, and then FE and TI pop in to try to figure out how they can be of significance to the community and eventually of use to it. So that relates back to this idea of vocation. INFJs want to be vocational in this sense, but it is a lifelong struggle, and it's full of hurdles, because sometimes NI will be so abstract that they will find it hard to completely translate those insights, and they might come to see that this conflicts with the harmony that they desire within the group via their FE function. And they develop strategies, again, that can be either healthy or unhealthy. If you want to know more about this idea of vocation, chapter 3 of the Ecstatic Soul really explores this topic in depth. And so this is all I wanted to say about the 5 worries of the INFJ, essential worries rather than accidental ones. If you would like to hear more about my contents, consider subscribing, drop a like, a comment, and I hope to see you soon. See you guys.